the Start Your Own Business podcast. Hear inspiring startup stories and get reliable expert advice on how to start your business and get off to the best possible start. Brought to you by Startup Donut, helping small businesses succeed.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. You're listening to the Start Your Own Business podcast. My name's Fiona Pryor and I'm your host. This episode is the first in a two-part special mini-series looking at small business websites. I'll be seeking tips on how to optimise your small business website so that it ranks highly on the results pages of Google and other search engines. There's no point having a business website if it never gets found by search engines because you'll be missing out on leads and sales. When your potential customers are looking for products and services like yours, they'll be entering keywords into search engines such as Google. We all do it now, don't we? What you need to do is make sure your website appears high up in search engine results pages and optimise your website. But what does that mean? How is it achieved? And as a small business owner, can you do it yourself or do you need to pay an agency to optimise your website for you? Sharing his insight in this fascinating first episode is Craig Murphy, founder of Birmingham-based ALT Agency, the sponsor of this episode. Craig's an expert in website design, website development, search engine optimisation and website maintenance. He's helped many businesses just like you to optimise their websites for search engines. Before we meet Craig, let's find out a little more about the ALT Agency.
Struggling to get your website to rank on search engines? Need a standout site? Meet Alt Agency, the Midlands-based WordPress agency where SEO and web design excellence go hand in hand. Led by SEO specialist Craig Murphy, Alt Agency has earned numerous 5-star reviews on Google and Clutch. They create bespoke SEO strategies that drive targeted traffic and deliver real results. From in-depth keyword research to stunning user-friendly WordPress websites, Alt Agency ensures your site ranks highly and converts visitors into loyal customers. With more than 15 years' experience and a focus on user experience and post-launch support, Alt Agency combines technical expertise with creative design. Learn more at www.altagency.co.uk. That's www.altagency.co.uk.
It's now time to meet our expert Craig Murphy, founder of Birmingham-based Alt Agency. So, in your experience, Craig, is SEO something that small businesses are good at and something that they understand?
It's usually not something that they're very good at, but it's something that small businesses are very often aware of. Yeah, SEO is just one marketing tool that a business has and can use amongst very many other marketing tools out there. And a lot of small business owners believe it's more complex than what it actually is. They'll do a bit of research online, watch some YouTube videos. There's lots of acronyms and buzzwords which confuse a lot of people and make things sound a lot more complex than what they actually are. But there's also a lot of SEO reporting tools as well, which can be quite complex for people to understand as well when they've got a million and one other things going on as well.
So we're saying that it can be sort of intimidating when you're looking into it, but it is possible for you to do it yourself once you understand the basics.
Well, yes, absolutely. Once you understand the basics, it's very simple. There's lots of free keyword tools out there, and lots of reporting tools out there, which can help you um, find your ideal keywords for you to target, and lots of reporting tools out there to find where you rank for those keywords. But there's far more data, reports, and technical side to SEO as well, which a lot of people struggle with unless they can code. They might find it a bit challenging to fix.
Yeah. Okay. So how would I go about checking my search engine rankings myself if I had a website for my business?
And so there's a number of tracking tools out there. Some are free and some are paid. They're the most accurate way to check your rankings. The main tool which we use is a piece of software called Ahrefs. That's Ahrefs. And there's also a number of other tools as well, which people may have heard of, such as Moz and Ubersuggest. A lot of people tend to just go to their browser and type in the keyword and see where they rank for. And that's usually not always accurate due to location and search history and these type of things. So they could get the wrong results from there. But there's a few variables which can affect the accuracy of the results. That's why we always recommend using paid tools like Hrefs or Moz, for example.
And what kind of ranking is it realistic for a small business to achieve? Is there something, like a target that you should be aiming for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because if it's a small business that's very new, and they've only just brought their domain name and they've done no SEO before, it can take a bit of time to get the rankings anyway. So you're looking like a 3 to 6 month period for the website to start ranking, especially if it's a fresh domain. And there's other things which can affect it as well, like how complex the domain, so the keyword is to rank for. So if you're a very niche business, like a baker's in a very small town, you may start to rank quite quickly within 3 to 6 months, and you can jump onto page one in that short period. But if you're trying to rank for something a lot broader, like us, for example, with web design in Birmingham, that can take a lot longer because it's a lot more competitive. So the more niche and smaller the area is, often it involves less search volume, but they usually rank quite quicker for them. And obviously, to answer your question more directly, sorry, you really want to rank as high as possible. There are studies out there which say um, the top three results in Google get majority of clicks. So ideally, you want to be in the top three positions of Google.
Yeah. So you've said that, there are paid tools and there are free tools that you can use. In your experience, are there sort of certain types of businesses that really should be investing in kind of paid SEO work?
Yeah, so anybody who's in a very competitive industry would really want to do SEO. If you're just a local, like a baker, for example, something like that, you're probably not going to want to invest in SEO. If you're a bigger business, if you're an e-commerce site, for example, you're really going to want to invest in your SEO there. If you're a service provider, like an accountant, a plumber, a plumber may benefit from SEO. An accountant for sure would benefit from SEO as well. So they're the types of smaller businesses who would probably want to invest from a paid SEO campaign.
Okay, so moving sort of away slightly, for those businesses that should be investing in paid SEO, what's the likely impact if they haven't done that and if they haven't optimized their website?
Yes, so having no SEO for your website and not being optimized for the search engines, the main risk there is that you don't get found in the search engines. So, for example, if somebody types in accountant in and then a town or a city, the likelihood that you is that in the worst case you won't be found for that search term, which is very important to your business. Yeah, usually at the very least as well, a company, even if they've not done SEO, should really rank for their brand name anyway in the local area. That's usually one of the things that you rank for quite easily. So, for example, with what we do, if we didn't optimize our website for web design in Birmingham, then we definitely wouldn't probably even show on the first 4 or 5 pages of Google, let alone the first page at all. But for our brand name, Alt Agency, because it's quite unique, Alt and Agency, we rank quite well for that, and small businesses should anyway, just because it's our brand name. And obviously, if you're not ranking on the first couple of pages of Google, then you risk getting no traffic, and importantly, inquiries for that keyword.
Yeah, so basically, no visibility means no visitors. And if you're relying on your website for your business, so if you're an e commerce business, we're basically saying that then means potentially no sales. So for those kinds of businesses, it's essential that you do your SEO work to make sure that you're appearing high enough up in the rankings for people to find you when they're looking for businesses either like yours or looking for you specifically by your brand name.
Yeah, as a very worst case, yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So talking about your brand name then, and your, if you've got a brand name, presumably you'd want to have that included in your URL. Your web address then, how important is that to your search visibility?
So not as important as it once was. If you think back 10 or 15 years ago, you'd have seen people having URLs like Web Designer in Birmingham, just as another example. That they were okay back then in the day, but these days Google's a lot smarter. There was apparently a penalty where these types of exact match domains, which is where it's like your keyword and your location, that they were turned down a bit in the Google algorithm. So they're not as important as what they once were, 5, 10 years ago. But there are examples of where that does work quite well. For example, like hotels.com, it's got the keyword and the brand name both in the URL, and that's an exact match domain as well. But because it's a live website, that's a brand name. They've got other advertising around it as well. that works quite well. But we wouldn't really recommend these days someone goes and purchases, for example, Baker in, and then like the city, for example, like Baker in Birmingham. We don't really recommend that these days. You just have the domain, which is your company name, like altagency.co.uk, for example.
Yeah, your brand name.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting because in a previous episode in this series, we were talking to Mike, who's the co-founder of Crimpit, and he talked about how actually they were able to sort of get search rankings really very quickly because their brand name was completely unique and there was nothing else competing for them. So there are examples out there where actually, it does work for you. So yeah, it's good information to bear in mind. Um, Going back to keywords, it's a phrase that you hear bandied about all the time when you're talking about search engine optimization. How would I know what my keywords should be if I had a website? What should I be looking out for?
Usually just starting with the very, very bare bones basics. So, for example, again, if you are an accountant in Birmingham, that's probably what people would type in. So you would start there, your accountants in Birmingham, that would probably be your primary keyword. And as we were talking about earlier, those tools like Hrefs, for example, and Ubersuggest, they have within them keyword suggestion tools, as does Google itself, the Google Keyword Planner. So you can type keywords in there and it will help you find very similar keywords related to that as well. So you can find all the different variations of keywords as well as other suggestions as well. And another good thing to do that's very, very simple is when you do a Google search, so if you typed in, for example, accountant in Birmingham or web designer in Birmingham, if you scroll to the bottom of the search results, there's the little box that says people also search for. You can also take your ideas from there as well. But the keyword research is very, very important. That's the whole foundation to any SEO campaign.
So as a starting point, you're basically saying put yourself in your customer's shoes. Think what would they be using to search for me, and that to be your starting point.
Yeah, for a very, very basic step one starting point, that would be ideal. Yes, as you move further down the line, you've optimized around that keyword. You start looking for what we call long tail keywords, which are longer variations. But that gets a bit further down the line. But from day one, yes, that would be correct.
So when you're talking about long tail keyword, can you give me an example? So if I was looking for an accountant in Birmingham, what would be a long tail keyword perhaps around that I might use then?
Yeah, so a very example of a very short one would just be like local accountant, for example, or accountant near me. And then if you go in a lot more long tail, you might be searching for um, accountants in Birmingham who specialise in e-commerce companies, for example. That'd be classed as a very long tail one.
Talking of, we talked about keywords. You've got your list of keywords. How many should you be looking to include on your website? Is there kind of optimal number that you should be looking for?
Not really these days. Again, if you go back 10, 15 years ago, some people would have a page for a keyword. You don't really do that these days because Google understands that 10 variations of a keyword are all grouped under one roof. So it depends as well. An e-commerce site is going to rank for probably thousands of keywords, where a much smaller niche business like an accountant in a city, for example, from a very top level main keyword is probably only going to rank for a handful of keywords. But the more you optimize your site, the more content you put out, the more keywords that you'll rank for just naturally. Anyway, but in terms of like primary main keywords, if you are an accountant in a smaller city, you're probably only going to rank 10, 15, 20 main keywords to bring 80 to 90% of your traffic, probably.
Yeah. So I've got my list of keywords. I'm then making sure that I'm including them in my site. Where would I be making sure that those keywords are appearing then if I want to get, optimal SEO with those terms?
Yeah, so from a very basic point of view, you'd want your keyword in what's called the page title. So when people are editing their websites in the back end, they might have in their editor they're using, whether that's like Wix or WordPress, for example, they might notice something called a meta title and a meta description. The meta title is when you run a search on Google, the meta title is the blue link that you click on to go to the website. So you'd include your keyword there and also in the meta description, which is usually 160 characters, you'd include it there. But it needs to be included naturally. So you wouldn't just like put your keyword in there 2 or 3 times. You need to put the title into like an enticing title that somebody would click on, because obviously in the search results, You want to stand out, so you want to make your title as enticing and creative as possible. And then in the description as well, which is the bit that people read before they click through to your website from Google, you just want to entice people to click through and make sure what they are clicking is relevant to the search term that they've searched for.
So the descriptions, the kind of, so if I'm thinking, when I've done Google searches, so the meta title is the bit at the top that you see first of all, which is the page title, and then the sort of description is the little kind of snippet underneath that tells you what's appearing on that page. So you're needing to making sure you're including it there too.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. So usually on Google, on the first page, you normally get the 10 what we call organic results. The title will be the blue text that you click, and then yeah, as you said, the snippet is the bit that entices people to click through.
Is it worth looking at what your kind of competitors are ranking for when you're doing your keyword research?
Yeah, that's usually the very first place that one of the first places that people start. So yeah, it's just like doing a search again for like accountants in Birmingham, seeing what the top three people are doing, what kind of keywords they're including in their title, what they're putting into their description. But that usually just gives people a very basic understanding because there might be other keywords further down the line which are more important and other opportunities that competitors aren't ranking for as well. So yeah, as a very basic day one you could do, yes, but further down the line, you'd want to look for other opportunities that competitors aren't searching for.
So it's about refining what the keyword terms that you want to rank for.
Exactly, yes, that's correct.
Is there a risk of using terms that are too broad? That you then attract people who actually aren't your target market.
Yeah, absolutely. So you probably wouldn't want to be ranking for just like accountants or accountant's firm, anything too broad for that, or like bookkeeping, for example. Although it can help with Google understanding what your website's about, so you would talk about those things on your website. But yeah, for a small business working in a very local area, you'd really want your main keyword, and your area included as keywords to target. Yeah, because you're never going to rank for anything like that, or like credit cards, for example, or copywriter. They're going to be very, very difficult because they're just too broad to rank for.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of putting myself in the shoes of a business here. So, for the sake of argument, I've got a holiday cottage on the Jurassic Coast, and you want to attract people to come and stay in your holiday cottage. I suppose there's a number of ways that you could optimize to attract people. You could use perhaps keywords like Jurassic Coastal Path. You might use, a local music festival and mention that in your keywords. Or you could, if you wanted, to target particular groups of people, go for perhaps something like fossil hunting holidays that you're then attracting families who might be looking, and your choice around those would depend on exactly the kind of customer that you're wanting to attract to your website.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and that would probably be what we'd class as like the phase two. Once you've got your main keywords done as phase one, the obvious ones that people are going to be searching for, that's when you kind of get into the more long tail niche things where it's more specific. But yeah, that's what the kind of optimization we recommend a bit further down the line. Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. um we've talked about making sure you include keywords in your titles and in your page descriptions. Obviously, I imagine that there's a balance that needs to be struck. You've already mentioned about not just having the keyword as your page title. Is there a risk of trying to jam too many keywords into your content? Can you muddy the water?
Yes, absolutely. There's phrases out there like keyword density and keyword stuffing. So keyword density is apparently not an actual ranking factor from what we know. So basically, if you're a web designer based in Birmingham again, if you've got your title tag and your meta description, you wouldn't want like your opening paragraph once somebody's clicked your website to say we're a web designer in Birmingham, we're offering web design services in Birmingham, we're the best web design agency in Birmingham. You kind of want the content on your website to be written for humans. A lot of people used to do that and make it very robotic and unnatural to read. But these days, Google's all about matching the website to the search intent, providing great experience and great quality content to the searcher. So yeah, you wouldn't really want to do anything like keyword stuffing. You might mention your keyword 2 or 3 times on the page. That should be sufficient enough. But there's more important metrics such as on-page engagement rate, bounce rates. These kind of things are probably more important than like how many times you mentioned the keyword on your site.
So there obviously, websites these days are not just flat pages with text on. They've got all kinds of things on there. People have video content on their website. They have images. Do we need to optimize those sort of items on our website for SEO too?
Yeah, so you'd optimize your images, for example. Again, you wouldn't want to go too far with optimization, but file size is pretty important as well. You don't want to put a 10 megabytes, 3000 pixel image on your website, especially on a mobile device, because it needs resizing. So the user experience is very important to SEO as well. How quickly the site loads, and just the file name of the image as well. So you wouldn't want your homepage with 10 images on there, all saying accountant in Birmingham.jpg, for example. You'd probably choose one file name with your keyword in and just make it as descriptive as possible. And there's something called alt tags as well, which is how you put a description onto an image. Again, you just want it to be as natural as possible so that search engines and browsers can understand what the image is about rather than trying to game the search engine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So it's about helping not just the search engines, though, presumably, but also, web visitors to your site to understand what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think if there's one thing to take away from this conversation is that it's optimizing primarily these days for users rather than trying to manipulate Google, which people tend to go away with very easily 10 years ago. If the content on your website's poor, it's going to give you a bad experience. People are not going to go on your website. They're not going to convert. So it kind of defeats the whole object. You want to put your users first. And by that, we mean the loading time of the website, your call to actions, all these tie into SEO as well. But people often just think it's about the rankings, which can be a bit of a vanity metric. You can rank for any keyword that you want, really. But if there's nobody searching for it or not clicking through to your website, there's no point actually ranking for it at all.
So, Google's smart these days, and it understands that if you're not giving users what they're looking for when they come to your site, that actually you could be have all the search engine optimization you like, but actually they're smarter than that, and they know that you're not delivering what customers want, so you're not your ranking is going to be go down anyway.
Exactly, and that's why it's good to focus on other metrics rather than just the number of keywords that you rank number one for. You want to be looking for other metrics as well, as I mentioned earlier, like the engagement rate, which is in GA4, Google Analytics 4, how long people are spending on your site. 'Cause if people are reading like a 4,000 blog word article and they're only on your site for 10 seconds, they're clearly not reading it, so it
Yeah.
would identify another issue. But these metrics, how people are engaging with your site and how long they're staying for, and importantly, are they buying or inquiring about your service or product, are just as important as the rankings as well.
Yeah, it's about making it easy for people to find that information. So actually, if the intention of your site is for people to, sign up to a newsletter or for them to, purchase from your goods, is it easy for them to do that? Can they find the products they're looking for? How easy is your checkout process? Do you offer payment, easy payment, things like that? It's all part of the usability that will help improve your search engine rankings.
Exactly, yes. Most people just track the rankings, as I say earlier, and they think SEO stops there. They think, oh, we've got the rankings now, but they forget about what actually happens. You put all this effort into getting the high rankings. What you do when somebody lands on your website, and that falls into what we call conversion rate optimization, which goes hand in hand with search engine optimization. So that's just optimizing the website for conversions, as you're mentioning. Is the menu clear? Are the buttons clear? If you're taking credit cards, does the site appear trustworthy and got all card logos and all those type of things on there to build the trust to convert that customer once they've actually landed on your website?
So another tool that people are advised to make use of are sort of links from other trusted websites. How important is that for someone starting out? Just launched your website. How important or valuable can links from other websites be?
Yeah, so depending on who you speak to, obviously links are important. It's just how important these days. If you go back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because SEO has changed so much, even just over the last 2 years, it changed so much. It used to be the case of if your website, for example, had 1,000 links and had 1,001 links, then it's highly likely that I would outrank you just because I had more links to my websites than what you did. Links is certainly probably in the top three most important things when it comes to SEO, but it's not about volume. It's more a lot it's more these days about the quality of the link. And Google
Yeah.
runs updates to the algorithm. It changes the algorithm many times a year, and it runs link spam updates, which target these types of low quality spammy backlinks to a website. So if somebody's gone out there, we all get these emails every day. We can do SEO for $99, buy a guest blog post. They're not as effective as what they once were. They may work in the short term, but if Google changes the algorithm, your rankings can drop further down the line. But you can get great quality backlinks, which is what SEO is primarily about. So, for example, if you're doing a PR campaign, which goes hand in hand with SEO and the local media, so again, also we're based in Birmingham. If the Birmingham Mail pick up on something what we do and they link back to us, that's quite what we'd call a good quality link, rather than these low quality spammy links which have been put on these dodgy websites just for the purpose of selling backlinks, basically. But for a small local business like a plumber, one of the ways that they can get backlinks quite easily is by submitting to directories. So like Yell, Thomson, the Birmingham Mail's got its own directory. So these type of directory backlinks will help on the link building process and just get them off to a good start. And they're usually free as well to submit to these directories. So that's a very good place to start as well.
Yeah. Another tactic that I've seen people use when it comes to links is that I've seen there's a really lovely local florist, and she obviously will do flowers for various different events, weddings and funerals and things like that. And she often will post articles about, what are the seasonal trends for brides, and will then link into other local trusted businesses, so bridal shops, bridal venues, and they kind of reciprocate the links. So you get a nice circle that sort of promoting other local businesses, and that seems to be a tactic that people use. Is that something that's useful?
Not really these days. I mean, if you're doing a direct link exchange where it's like you link to me, I'll link to you, Google can pick up on these and you can get penalized for it. You just want to do it as naturally as possible, really, without expecting
Mm,
anything back.
yeah,
That's why you do the PR. And if you write a if you write a great article which users love and they're sharing it and you get natural backlinks from that, then that's fine. There may
yeah.
be some crossover where your article links out to a website that loves your article and links back to you. But in terms of trying to manipulate it, I would probably advise against that, in all honesty.
We've talked about web design briefly already, but you've alluded to the fact that actually web design is really important when it comes to SEO. So I wondered if we could talk about that a little bit more. What you need to be looking out for, things, considerations like the fact that these days most of us will do at least some searches every day from our mobile phone for something. We're looking for the opening hours of the local veterinary practice, or we want to check out the menu of a local restaurant that's been recommended to us. So how important it is that web design and um, visibility on a mobile device.
It's absolutely essential these days. Some businesses and some of our clients, they can be 80 to 90%, especially the e-commerce retailers and the like local tradesmen. A lot of people will be on the phones, and we're talking 80 to 90% of traffic can be from a mobile device for those types of businesses. It's super important, as I mentioned in earlier, because the last thing you want is somebody coming from Google, clicking to your website, and either you've got a huge image on there or the text is too small and they can't read it. So having a mobile optimized site is super important, because if somebody can't find what they're looking for on your website, they're going to bounce back to the Google search results and click somewhere else. And it's potentially believed that Google can use this data because you're not fulfilling the user's need. So somebody else is, they could end up ranking higher than you because their website's got a much better user experience than your website has. And if you're trying to generate a lead for your business, somebody clicks through to your website. If your form's really small and they can't click into the form field to put their name in and the phone number, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to bounce and go elsewhere. So yeah, the conversion rate optimization, the mobile optimization, just making sure your website is as seamless as possible across all devices is absolutely essential to help with your SEO as well.
So we've talked about all the things you should be doing. What are the common mistakes that listeners need to make sure they absolutely avoid when it comes to SEO? What are the kind of big red flags?
The first thing I'd say is don't buy dodgy backlinks. As I mentioned earlier, we all get these emails, buy this backlink, do a guest post here. $99 guest posting. I'd stay away from them. They're probably a waste of time, and the money can be used for better things such as content and improving the general site. They may work in the short term, but as soon as Google picks up on it and you might take away the power of that link, for example, your rankings are going to start to fall. So definitely stay away from these dodgy backlinks. Further from that, a couple more things. I'd say probably don't create content for the sake of it. So, for example, if you're an accountant in Birmingham, a lot of people they'll start putting blog posts on their website using variations of accountants in Birmingham. So they might put blog posts up like, called accountants in Birmingham, best accountants in Birmingham, top accountants in Birmingham. There's no need to do it because Google won't know which one to rank for accountants in Birmingham, as an example. So you kind of want just one main piece of content that answers all the questions and covers all the different areas there. A bit like a Wikipedia, it just answers everything. It's the ultimate piece of content.
One hero piece.
A hero piece, yes, exactly. Because what happens then when you've got 4 or 5 articles which are very similar to each other, you get something called content cannibalization, and Google won't know which page to rank, and it can end up not ranking you at all, or different pages will rank different time during different periods. So you kind of want your just that one hero piece of content. And I probably wouldn't obsess over vanity metrics, as we mentioned earlier. You could probably get to number 1 for any keyword that any gibberish that you make up. But if no one's searching for it, you're getting no traffic. It's just a vanity metric. You do want to be focused on your keywords, which are highly relevant to your business, but you also want to be looking at those metrics once someone's come to your site. 100 people have gone to Google and found you and clicked through to your website. What have those 100 people then done? Have they all left your website within seconds? Are they sticking around? Are they buying? It's metrics like that which are more important. The conversion rate metrics are more important.
Perfect. Well, there's a lot of ground that we've covered there, and hopefully, listeners will find that really useful and in starting their kind of journey. Before we wrap up here, can you just tell people where they can find you and the Alt Agency online, please?
Yes, so we're at altagency.co.uk. That's altagency.co.uk. Or if you search that in Google, you'll be able to find us straight away. Just search for Alt Agency or Alt Agency Birmingham, and you'll be able to find us in Google straight away.
Perfect. Well, we'll be speaking to each other again soon. We've got another episode coming up because this is a 2-parter, as we've mentioned at the beginning. So for now, thank you very much, Craig. That's really helpful. Cheers.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, that brings to a close part 1 of this special 2-parter. I hope that you found my chat with Craig helpful. In part 2, Craig will be explaining how you can convert your web traffic into paying customers. We'll be looking at the importance of web design, web content, and your calls to action. If you're enjoying the Start Your Own Business podcast, please spread the word so we can help even more business owners, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes as they drop. You can find links to Craig and the ALT Agency in the summary notes, along with further information and resources on search engine optimization from across the Donut sites. And you can find the summary notes at www.startyourownbusinesspodcast.co.uk. Finally, a big thanks to Craig for his time and his insights. Keep your ears to the ground for part 2, but until then, all the best.